FCO, NTDO 212, com check.
CPS, go. Inco, go. PUS, go. Surgeon, go. Booster, go. Copy that. We have a go from you guys.
This is Talking Sound.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Talking Sound podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host, coming to you from Austin, Texas. The Talking Sound podcast is now brought to you by podcastcadet.com. If you want to start a podcast, if you already have a podcast, whether it's for your business, personal, school, church, what have you, and just don't know how to wade the waters of that, give podcastcadet.com a call. They are there to help. They have a whole staff of professionals with years of experience doing this that can gladly help you out. That, once again, is podcastcadet.com. I am so entirely happy to have our guest on today. Today we have Todd Cochrane, the head of Blubrry, CEO, founder, to talk about the importance of owning your content. Todd, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your more than busy schedule to come on the show and discuss this really, really important topic. It's something that's near and dear to my heart as an artist, as a musician. Owning your content. It's probably one of the most important things that you can do from the get-go is to actively start putting the barriers into place between the public realm and your content, whether it's music, whether it's a website, your business, even a podcast like what Todd and I do. I host the Talking Sound podcast, the Dudes and Beer podcast. Todd is the owner and CEO of Blubrry. He is the host and owner of the Tech Podcast Network, the new media show. His list of accolades goes on and on. He's one of the first people to be inducted into the Podcasting Hall of Fame and one of the first podcasters out there. So, Todd, explain to the people what, number one, what Blubrry is all about and why you started it.
Yeah, sure. Blubrry Podcasting is a full-service podcast hosting company. We provide really a wide range of tools and services, but it's all designed for folks that are getting ready to start their show or have an existing podcast. We take care of the media hosting. We provide IAB certified podcast statistics. Even folks that don't have a website, we even help them get started with their own website by providing them a free website when they sign up. So really, it's full service. And then we have product services for enterprise clients. Companies like ESPN, ABC, all the way down to maybe even small churches. It really runs the gambit on what we have available and the product lineup and tools and services. Of course, we're most famous largely for our PowerPress podcasting plugin that goes into WordPress. There's about 75,000 shows that power their shows with the plugin. And it's part of our company mantra. A lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is really the origins of that plugin was designed to allow people to build their shows, their brands on their own website. But, getting back to part of your original question here is Blubrry was born out of an opportunity, and it goes all the way back to 2005. I started podcasting in October of 2004. In June of 2005, I was approached by GoDaddy to do sponsorship of my personal show, Geek News Central, which I had already established a network, like you had mentioned, the Tech Podcast Network in early 2005. But basically, we got through a round of advertising with them, and it came down to time to renew. And one of the parting discussion points on that call was, Todd, do you know anyone else who would like to advertise in podcasts? And I'm like, yeah, or other shows. And that born a business. And from my own podcast, I found my team members that formed the company, and the company's actually parent company name is Raw Voice, but most people don't know us by that. Blubrry Podcasting is the brand that the majority of folks know us by, but really it was formed from an opportunity to take what I had learned from advertising my own show and help other podcasters get advertising for their own, and at the same time, then build a company, and then ultimately we became a full podcast service company.
Well, and honestly, that's what I love the most about not only Blubrry, but your philosophy as well, Todd, is that it's not a competitive philosophy. It's the concept that this is a community, and when one person is lifted up, we're all lifted up. When quality comes out of one person, quality is expected from the rest of us. And the fact that you didn't see other podcasters coming into the industry as competition to you, but rather a chance to kind of lean your hand down and say, hey, this is what I was able to set up. Let me help you set it up. That's a great concept.
Well, don't get me wrong. We took a commission on those sales, so there
absolutely.
was a capitalistic side to it as well.
Well, most definitely. I mean, even on my network, I get the equivalent of a booking fee. You know, I mean, it's a percentage of people's intake off of their monetized platforms that we set them up with. Hey, if it's a platform that you set yourself up with, or an advertiser or sponsor you found, that's 100% yours. Take it. You know. But if we set you up with it, then we take a little slice of that. And same thing with you guys. But it's the one thing that I loved. I met you at the Texas Podcast Convention in San Antonio a couple weeks ago while you were speaking. I was on some panels, things like that. And the thing that I loved was that even though you are a hosting company, even though you provide these professional services, you don't care if people use you. You aren't trying to sell you or your services.
Well, you know, we definitely make it easier for them to use our tools if they're hosting with us. And, you know, that's part of that, you know, like the candy at the checkout. We're kind of like that. You know, we provide some great tools. And if you decide that you want to make it a little easier for yourself, you can use us for our hosting. But it really goes back to really company philosophy, and what we learned and what we saw time and time again was that podcasters, and we'll use podcasters as the initial example. Maybe we talk a little bit about YouTube and some others later, but we would see podcasters that would start off on platform, let's call it the Acme Podcast Company, for a better word. And they had everything over there. You know, they had their show notes, their feed, their media, really their lifeblood of their show, their RSS feed, which is, you know, equivalent of a radio tower transmitter, the antenna to it, that is. And then those companies didn't make it. They closed. And sometimes companies closed at the most inopportune time. Example was December 22nd, we received information that a podcast hosting was pulling the plug on Christmas Day. Well, you know, on the 22nd of December, already people are in holiday mode. They're already in visit the family mode. Sometimes they're on vacation already.
Yeah.
And they had, you know, we had shows that come back after the new year that were essentially those podcasts had an extinction event. They were taken off the air by their provider that closed the doors on them. And we've seen this happen time and time again. Now, fortunately, it hasn't happened in recent days, but we do see podcast hosting companies making material changes to their businesses, and it affects people where you're on a platform, you think you've got a good deal, and then all of a sudden the deal changes. So what we've always focused on, and what we've really, you know, because my team is made up of podcasters too, and there's a lot of companies out there that don't have podcasters that are, you know, doing podcast hosting. How can you be in the business of podcasting and really not know the down deep and dirty on what it takes to build a show and maintain an audience and do everything that you need? So I always question those companies that don't have a podcast presence, or their corporate executives just wear suits and ties. I'll probably have to wear a tie next week when I'm out in LA, but I also have a podcast that I do. So I'm still in the mix of doing things. But the point here is that we wanted people to build their brands on their sites. You know, put it on their.com, have their branding, have their voice, have the Google juice for people when searching for the show's particular topic to be able to come back to them. And I always refer to your podcasting home site as kind of like Moonbase Alpha. It's kind of a stupid way to refer to it, but you have to have a place to call home that you own. That you would a lot of stores. Take for example where I'm at right now. I'm in my studio here in Michigan, and when I moved back from Honolulu to Michigan, my sister owned a building, and she's had an opening. One of her tenants moved out, and I felt fairly confident that getting a contract with my sister and laying down a rent price for the next 5 years, that I wasn't going to have the rug pulled out from me. Now, family always does stupid things from time to time as well, but I felt pretty sure I could rent land or rent my office here. Whereas if I'd have put it in a strip mall somewhere, every 2 years they're raising the rent on you if you're not a long-time tenant. So I wanted a place that I could feel fairly safe and make a big investment in. And podcasting is the same way. You'll want to make an investment and there's even more safety. This building could burn down and I would lose everything. But on a website, if you have your own .com, and as long as you've got backups, you can recover very quickly from catastrophe. Even if your web hosting provider goes out of business. So having your own .com, having your own brand, people knowing where that stuff is, to me, is fundamental 101. But yet today we continue to see a lot of podcasters that go stick their shows on some other hosting site at some other extension, and then can be impacted negatively because they are, but oftentimes then 3-4 months in, they graduate and say, oh my God, what have I done? And they graduate their shows to their own websites. But it's a progression story.
And I see the same thing living here in Austin, and even over the years with bands that I worked with before I went into the corporate realm, seeing the exact same situation go on where people would simply have their stuff up on Reverb Nation. Or something like that. It's like but now you're giving all your traffic, all your provable metrics to Reverb Nation.
Right.
Any kind of promotion that you may want to go to, like, hey, say that you want to go be like a Bud Light promoted band, and have a Bud Light deal where there are Bud Light specials everywhere that you play, stuff like that. You're going to have provable metrics. They're going to want to know where your website is. What are you distributing? How are you getting a hold of your fans? All that kind of stuff. It's the exact same thing in the podcast world. If you go to any kind of sponsor, even your local business is going to want to know something about your reach, things like that. And that's where, to me, especially when you're building a brand, you need to own everything. The example I gave at PodCon was the huge snafu that was just made in the campaign engines, where Joe Biden had started a movement for Latino teens and hadn't secured the .com, hadn't gone out and started the hashtag, but announced the movement. And the opposition immediately went out and purchased the .com and the .net and the .org and and everything. And it so easily happens. And then once that happens, like I even owned my .com years ago for HC Productions and let it lapse, let it go away, and now I just Google stalk my old .com every once in a while and see what it's doing. But to actively own the point of transfer is really the easiest way that I try to explain it to people. Is you're there, you're manufacturing something. At some point, there is a point of transfer where it goes out to distribution to Amazon, to Walmart, to Guitar Center, to all of these different places for distribution to the masses. Exact same thing. You want that to be in-house. You don't necessarily want to just go to Anchor, want to go to even, like, I use Spreaker. I'm a big fan of Spreaker, but I would never just host my content on Spreaker. Spreaker picks up my RSS feeds from my website.
And I think what you have there is, I always tell people that your media, which you should keep a copy of, can be moved anywhere. But your website and your brand and your Google Juice, that isn't easily moved. So, I've had my domain 17 years. 2 of it before I started podcasting, I was just blogging. Figured out that I spoke and draw a bigger audience by speaking than writing. And I have writers today that still maintain my blog, but at the same time interjected as podcast content. So what I've really done over that 15 years, and I tell podcasters just getting started, is that you're as you write for your website and put content up and put this rich metadata from your shows and these good show notes and links to authors and ideas and whatever else you're putting in there that is a valuable commodity, Google's going to look at that, and over time you're going to build traffic, and building traffic builds audiences. So I often look and think about what's happened a little bit on YouTube. Now, if you have a favorite YouTuber out there and, they're getting a couple million followers, they're probably making some money. But Google is very sensitive. You say one wrong thing and you get the wrong type of complaint, and you're demonetized. You're deplatformed, essentially. You may still have your channel, but you're going to be driven down in the social ranking. And that's much harder to do when you have your own website. Now, you still can have the social media justice warriors and stuff come after you. That still can happen. But, you take the case of one individual that had said a number of incendiary things. He was deplatformed off of Twitter, off Facebook,
just
off of a variety.
Yeah, just a few incendiary things.
Yeah, and taken off. Yeah. Okay, so we won't get into politics of it.
No.
But and who we're talking about is Alex Jones. Yeah. So, take that content. Just using this as an example. So don't shoot the messenger here.
Yeah, exactly.
He was removed from Apple Podcast, which essentially removed him from all the apps. So what's the difference here? He still has his own website, and he still has his own RSS feed, and his fans can still subscribe to his show and still get access to his content. So even though he was deplatformed socially, he still has his own website. Now, that's an extreme case where this generally won't happen to normal people, but it could. You say just the wrong thing, and the next thing you know, you're deplatformed. So having your own .com and having your own website is really a crucial piece to maintaining and building your brand. And it's just the benefit of building your own brand on your own .com is worth it alone. And another thing too is Google is getting much more powerful in ranking and recommending podcasts. So if you're on your own .com and you have this, you're building your authority, your Google authority, you're starting to come up in the search results, the only thing it can negatively affect you is you. You can make a mistake and put something up that Google may not appreciate. But if you're on another platform, on someone else's .com, some other hosting platform, and you're an extension to their website, all it takes is just one knucklehead that is on that platform with you that's not related to your content. All they do is post one thing or link to something that gets blacklisted, and the whole domain is basically affected. It's driven down. So, there again is another reason you want to be in control of your destiny, in control of your business, in control of your content. I've gotten a lot of flack over the years for promoting this methodology. And it's the people that give me this flack are typically the people I compete with that say, oh, it's BS. That's not the case. It's not real. Well, what they do is they have a form of luck in. Mm-hmm. For me, and my .com, obviously I use Blubrry podcast hosting. I use our media hosting. I'm a CEO. If I'm not using it, I should be shot. But, I use my media hosting platform for my content. If Blubrry, God forbid, would go out of business tomorrow, let's say we pulled the plug, I shut everything off, all I would have to do to stay online is to move my media to another host. I would not I would not be affected. Our plugin will continue to work. My site would continue to work. It would be business with normal within 24 hours because I would just move.
Yeah.
A lot of folks can't say that, and they're dependent upon other folks. They, again, having your own .com sounds scary, but so many web hosts today offer managed WordPress hosting. So you don't even really have to manage your site. The third party does.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like you were saying, it sounds scary. The whole process can really be overwhelming to begin with if you aren't somewhat of a techie to start off with, of course. And I understand why some people, like we've been saying, go to these other networks, do that stuff. And just so y'all know, folks, I am not sponsored by Blubrry. I love what they're about, and I love Todd's philosophy, and I love his business philosophy and the fact that he wants people to be the owners of their content, to be the end producer, to be the end road. It's great to have your stuff out on as many platforms as possible. One of the big questions I get from people is, well, is it even worth getting on YouTube anymore? Because of course it's been shown more than once here recently that they game their own system for people that they want ranked higher or the content that they want up higher. But in addition to that, they've made it to where I think you have to have 10,000 followers and 100,000 views before you can start getting monetized. And then even shows like this show, Talking Sound, have episodes from 3 seasons ago where I was sitting in studio with the musician listening to the music that they wrote, and the whole episode got muted because of copyright claim. And it's like, hey, I'm here with the artist that wrote the song. How how can you say I don't have his permission to use this song? We're actively listening to it together on camera. So it's been strange to see that process pop up and to crop up. But I still recommend people go put their stuff on YouTube because, yeah, it's owned by Google. Next to Google, it's the second biggest search engine. You're just missing out on traffic. If you're not putting it on there, you're crazy. If you're not putting your stuff, my stuff's on Anchor, but it's hosted on my website before it hits anywhere else. That way, if Anchor goes down, anything goes down for a day or so. I'm kind of scared right now because I'm taking the next step after hearing you speak and talking about these conversations. I actively have a couple of servers and I'm looking at possibly just starting my own server and getting off a shared server platform with other people. I've never maintained my own server. I've never done that. But if it's something that can increase the number of people that can traffic to my website without throttling down my other websites or my traffic, because that's something that a lot of people don't realize whenever you go to, I myself am at NetFirms. Once again, not sponsored by NetFirms, y'all, not even an affiliate link on any of my websites, but I've used them. I've been pretty happy. They have, like you said, managed WordPress stuff. I do all my own coding, but whenever I have a database issue, something like that, some kind of conflict, I call them up. They fix it. It's great. Incredibly affordable. But I have had the issue where my websites have gotten throttled because of the amount of traffic that I've gotten off of large episodes. And it's because my pipeline, what happens, folks, is that your pipeline is shared. And when you start using up a bigger slice of the pie, they're going to bring you back down to the slice of the pie that you're supposed to be using.
Part of this, too, is what we find is that, I don't recommend anyone ever putting their media on their own shared hosting account. It's just there will be a time and comes when your account will not be accessible. It just happens way too often. If you're on a host that is a little bit of a lower end host and they don't have you're not getting like super responsive or you feel things are loading too slow. We've even introduced a product called Podcast Mirror, and we basically will mirror your RSS feed for you. And it's just a mirror. It takes what your podcast feed is got in it, it copies and duplicates it exactly and puts it on a real supercharged fast CDN, and allows you the ability to offload a little bit more from your website, but at the same point keeping control, because we'll put in the redirect back to where you want it to go when you're ready to move somewhere else. But I think what we really need to hone down on here, though, is that by having your own website, by creating content on your website and building this authority and building your brand and putting media information on there, is really what you end up doing is you're looking to dominate a certain set of keywords for your show, whatever specific content you're trying to get across. And if that's 10 different keywords, you can really work on honing to make sure that they're coming to your site, Google as well, and making your site the number one recommendation. But again, you're not going to get that as fast on a third-party site where your metadata may be serving. Google does, Apple, Google, etc., does not care where your media sits. It's really about that front-facing text and information that's on there about your show notes and the links out and so forth.
Well, and I'd love to do a whole episode with you at some point on show notes, but real quick, just so our audience understands, explain what keywords are and how they work, and how, like what you're saying, they're important because it points everything back to your directory, back to your home base, as opposed to other places. Like, even though you have your own website, maybe iTunes is taking you over in the web search.
Well, I'm more about, they're going to find they're just searching for my show, they're going to find it the 20 different places it is, and that's fine. I don't care where people listen to the show, long as they listen. I don't care where they consume it, because I'm going to get all that measurement data back. Yeah. What I do care about is, like today's episode for your show, we're talking about owning your own brand or owning your own podcast brand. So maybe the title of this show is Owning Your Podcast Brand, or your podcast brand, something you think that people are going to search for, and you want to make that the title of the show. If you want people to find this specific episode, you have to give Google some you can't name this show talking about podcasting. That's not going to work. Yeah. It's not going to be narrow enough. So you have to narrow the title, and then in the actual content of the post, of the blog post. And just remember, folks, people say, I don't want to blog. Well, you are blogging when you're podcasting, because everything that goes in the description is exactly the same as you would put in for a blog post. And it's basically the information you're going to start that description up. Today talked about, actually supposed to put the keywords as close to the front of the sentences. Why is owning your brand in podcasting important? And then the paragraph or two or three that you're going to write, do a summation of this discussion, maybe have some points, some reference points of time hacks of where we change topics a little bit, so that people will know where in the content to go to. And they also trigger the search engine and say, okay, they talked about owning your brand for the first 10 minutes of the show. They talked about why it's important, or what titling and SEO feature, so you need to have enough, I guess for better words, enough stuff in there for Google to chew on. I always tell people you record the podcast for your audience, but you write your show notes, you write your blog post for Google. And
I wish I had a crowd cheering cue right now.
Okay.
Because yes, and I've got people on my network who have great content, great shows. I love them, and they're friends, And I try to tell them whenever we have beers, like, hey man, and one of them's a writer, is what cracks me up. Like, dude, you're like published. You're a writer. You're in like short story compilations, all kinds of stuff. How come you can't write more than 3 sentences to describe an hour-and-a-half long podcast?
Yeah, so you got to give the search engine something to chew on. Now, please understand as well that this is not going to be the only way people discover your show. No. So discovery in podcast is largely done word of mouth today, or you're in a a group that's related to your content. You maybe point out a certain segment in a previous episode that they should go listen to. And I don't tell podcasters, if you are doing a show about, let's say crocheting, let's use the most, there are groups out there that talk about crocheting.
Yes.
And if you are in that group, you're not going to go in there and say, hey, I'm doing a crocheting podcast. No, and people are going to blast you for being a spammer. What you're going to do is you're going to say, well, the double hook, triple knot, twisty, super duper, whatever the topic is. And again, I shouldn't have used crocheting because I don't know any of the terms crocheters use. But if you talked about this specific type of thing in crocheting, you can tell them an episode and a time hack.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, podcasters, if you're doing your shows, keep an index, your own personal index of where you talked about certain things. So when you're out there socially, you can share and then give this piece of information. So again, they may find you via search. They may find you via word of mouth. They may find you by you interjecting something. They may hear about you on TV, on radio, your ebook. There's a dozen ways that they can find out about your show. But in the end, guess what they do? They all come back to Moonbase Alpha. Sure, they can interact with you on Facebook. They can interact with you on Twitter, on YouTube. This is all good. But as long as you're in every one of your podcasts saying, and by the way, folks, don't forget to come over to suchandsuch.com and subscribe to the podcast and find the show notes and get signed up for the newsletter. That's really all we're doing here.
Well, and what breaks my heart is whenever I hear people talking about how they want to monetize their podcast, how they want to start making money with it, things like that, and they haven't purchased a website. That makes it very hard. It's a lot easier in my mind to sell rotating ad space in a widget or banner ads, something like that, to local businesses who are looking to get their name out to a larger audience via podcasting, that kind of stuff, in niche markets.
And what I do is I tie all my advertising, my podcast actually gets the only banner space I have available on the website. So I give banners to my advertisers.
Exactly.
Because here's what it does. Some people, and I make a mention in my show notes, some people read the sponsor link, click. Someone sees the sponsor link, click. Or someone heard the sponsor link information and promo code and goes to the website and use it. So not everyone reacts the same way. Now, and full disclosure, GoDaddy is my personal podcast sponsor. So when I tell people to go to my website, to a certain page, like geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy to get a promo code, when I tell them to go there, I give them instructions. Either click on the link or take the promo code and use it at checkout.
Yeah.
And if you feel so inclined, link back to my website. Tell people where you got the promo code, and I kind of tie that together. But again, some people, and I've said that on the show 1,000 times, literally. I'm at 1,400 plus episodes, and yet people come to the website, and guess what they click first is the banner. It takes them right to GoDaddy. They don't go to the landing page, but they say, oh yeah, there's that link for GoDaddy. Let me click it and go over there.
Yeah.
So, because we're all listening to podcasts in different modes. We're not in front of our computers. Sometimes we're at the gym, and it takes something to trigger us. But again, if you don't have your own website, your own place to send people back to, it makes it harder. And it's, again, running ad campaigns. I always provide banners and text links and show notes as added value. I get paid on the downloads, or I get paid a flat rate for the sponsorship, but I still have a place. People are probably listening to this show and they're going, okay, Todd, we've got it. We really, really do. So what do I need to do? And I think that's really the big key here is there's lots of domains out there that are not available. You try to find your domain in a .com, you may have trouble. An example, I just opened a new business. It's New Media Productions. I was looking for newmediaproduction.com. Gone. Yeah. So what did I do? What did I find? Newmedia.production. It is a new top-level domain. And they've got .show, they've got guru, .pro. There's, literally 500 new top-level domains. So you should be able to find a domain that it fits your show. And don't name your show the Coca-Cola review show, And again, let's say the unofficial Coca-Cola review show, and then go find
Brought to you by Pepsi.
That was called the Dr. Pepper review show. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
You have to have a domain that's related to the actual content of your podcast.
Yeah. And it's all those things really come in far before you ever hit record, folks. I think a lot of people really do the ready, fire, aim method of podcasting. They just hit record and start putting something out, and they don't necessarily take the steps to think about branding. They don't take the steps to think about, okay, like my brother and I had a concept and still have a concept for a sci-fi podcast. And we sat out on his patio for 3.5 hours, like 3 cigars, like half a bottle of scotch one night, trying to name this thing. And every single time that one of us came up with names, we'd start Googling, and there was either a podcast that was really close to it or one that started with that name and went away. It was like, wow, like, it's really something that you need to go through and search, like Todd was saying, to do keyword searches. If it's a topic that you're looking for, anything like that, a topical podcast, search the names, come up with a good list of like 10 or 15 names, because more than likely the first 3 you've thought of, somebody either thought of it or has one real close to it.
And don't do the Biden effect and name something publicly. Don't ask for help. Don't go on a Facebook podcast group and say, I'm thinking about doing X, because somebody is going to, first thing they're going to say, oh, that's cool. And they're going to go to their favorite domain search engine, and they're going to look for that domain. If it's available, they're going to buy it from underneath you.
Yeah.
I don't like even, this is tell you how paranoid I am. I don't like even going to the domain search engines until I know that I've done Google searches and determine that domain is not in use. I won't. I will try. The last place I go is the domain search engine. I'm just that paranoid. So I go in the domain search engine. I search it. It's available. Buy it immediately. Don't
hesitate.
Time.
Don't hesitate. I've had that happen, but where it was like 2 days later, I went to pay the $10 and it was gone.
So you've something's triggered you, a news show, a TV program, something that's happened globally. You said, man, there's a good show there. A lot of other people are thinking the same thing. So I've been in the shower before and go, oh, and I've stopped the shower, dried my hair, half washed, and went to my computer and bought a domain. Yeah. Literally, because it's something triggered me to buy the domain. So, don't dilly-dally and don't tell anyone unless you trust them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it sounds like Todd's saying, folks, it sounds paranoid. It really does. I trust my wife implicitly. I trust my brother and my buddy Billy implicitly. But that's pretty much it.
When it comes to business ideas, branding ideas,
yeah, exactly. I don't let people in on it until it happens. And here's another little tip, folks: don't go piecemealing things to Google. In other words, don't go launch something on Facebook like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this podcast, so I'm gonna go out and get a Facebook page, and then a month later you start a Twitter. And then a month later, you start an Instagram. Then a month later, you're actually putting stuff out. No. Put it all out at once. All at once. Blast Google with all of that information pointing back to your .com. Like, put it all out on the same day. You can, whenever you're doing WordPress, most programs will let you put a splash page up or a coming soon page until you're ready to launch. I highly recommend doing that. I've found that it normally helps at least a little bit with an initial boost until you start regularly putting content out. And that's really the key, is regularity. Just keep putting it out there. Keep doing it. You're going to be lonely for a little while if you're podcasting. Like, literally, you're going to be talking into a microphone or across the table to whoever. and putting your stuff up maybe to no audience for a good little bit. So get used to it, get comfortable, but the main thing is own your content. Own it, own it, own it. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it has become my mantra. Whenever I talk to people about bands, businesses, what have you, it's go by your domain name.
I think we beat a dead horse here. I think we've went through that.
We did. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I would like to thank you for taking the time to come on to talk with our audience about these things. I'd love to have you back on again sometime to talk about strategies for getting stuff out, more stuff like this, even the algorithms that are coming out now for all the different platforms, everything. It's absolutely amazing the realm of technologies that is out there for us to be able to get content out, whether you're a podcaster, musician, media producer, what have you. So, Todd, please do tell the audience where they can go to check out your shows, where they can go to subscribe to everything.
First and foremost, you can reach out to me at todd@blubrry.com, BLUBRRY.com. Just remove the E's from Blubrry, BLUBRRY. I'm personally on social media at Geek News, as in like Nerd Geek, GEKNEWS. I currently do 3 shows. I do the Geek News Central podcast at geeknewscentral.com, the New Media Show, which I co-host with Mr. Rob Greenlee, a competitor, at newmediashow.com. Him and I do that every weekend. We're both in a location where we can record. Then I do the Podcast Insider, and that's a team effort, so I'm not on every week at podcastinsider.com. That's the official Blubrry podcast. And, of course, I'm on all the social media places. I should mention we're getting ready to launch our new network plugin.
Ooh.
So if you are building a network, this is a really exciting plugin. You can actually see a sample of it over at techpodcast.com. We've actually got it up and running over there. It's in a plain Jane site, but just wanted everyone to know that the plugin works with any theme or template. And it's used short codes to populate the website. You can mix, match, and put stuff up as grids, lists, show pages.
Wow.
There's all kinds of options. So, but anyway, Todd@blubrry.com is the place you can reach out to me. And if you're interested in building a network, let us know. We're very excited, and everyone we've shown and demoed the product to has been pretty excited as well.
Yeah, I know. Whenever I saw the sample a few weeks ago, it was more than exciting to see. And I know the stuff that's been going on with the updates on Tech Podcast Network are extraordinarily exciting. So I cannot wait for that.
But anyway, that's how you reach out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Todd, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, share your vast realm of knowledge with our audience today. Please do hold the line while we close things out. While you are online, checking out all the great work of Todd Cochrane and Blubrry, make sure to stop on by the Talking Sound Show. That is where you can find all the episodes. That's where you can find the Talking Sound freelancer page, where if you're a freelance AV technician like me, there's a listing of companies all over the country that hire freelance AV technicians. If you're in a city, you don't see a company that you work for, put it on there. Pay it forward, folks. Let us all know. Like we were saying at the beginning of the show, this is how you lift an industry up, is by helping people out. So somebody helped you, help somebody else. That's what we're all about. Don't forget to stop on by podcastcadet.com. Use the code TalkingSound20 to get things going for you. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourself, take care of your hearing, and keep reaching for 11. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.